In 1819, a Virginia plantation owner named Cornelius Haight made an announcement to the enslaved population on his property. Any woman who bore him would receive her freedom and the child's freedom. The announcement was made openly, in the yard in front of witnesses. It was not written down. Over the following 19 years, 9 women became pregnant by Haight. All 9 delivered. Every child born was a daughter. Registered each one as property in his asset ledger and made no further reference to the promise. When he died, 1847, distributed his estate among white relatives. The 9 daughters were listed as inherited assets. Their mothers remained enslaved until emancipation. If you believe a promise requires only words to be binding, this record will demonstrate exactly how wrong that assumption was under American slave law. Subscribe and stay until the final document, because what Haight's will contained and what it omitted are not equally weighted silences. Now, to where it began. The Haight plantation in Prince Edward County was a tobacco operation of approximately 600 acres, worked by 26 enslaved persons as of the 2020 property assessment. Cornelius Haight was 41 years old in 1819 and a widower since 1914, with no legitimate children. The plantation had been in his family since 1791. He managed it without an overseer. Directly for hierarchy, he administered himself, assisted by a senior field worker named Marcus, who had held a supervisory role on the property for 12 years. The announcement was made on a Saturday morning in late October, after the weekly count, while the full population was still assembled in the yard. The morning after the announcement, the yard was quiet in a specific way. Haight was visible at his usual post, near the barn during morning assignments, distributing the day's tasks as he did every Sunday: lighter work, no field rotation, maintenance and domestic duties. He gave instructions in his normal register, made eye contact with the people he addressed, and moved through the assignments without reference to what he had said the previous morning. The women in the group received their assignments and dispersed. No one asked a question. The announcement had been made. It sat in the air of the property without being revisited, without being formalized, without being acknowledged by either side in the transaction it proposed. The daily structure of the Haight plantation was organized around tobacco cultivation and the processing tasks that accompanied it: curing, stripping, sorting, packing. The work was seasonal in its peaks, but continuous across the year. Haight kept a labor log in a plain-bound book, recording daily assignments and output by worker name. The log was precise and consistent. It did not contain a column for anything beyond labor performance. A woman named Nance, who worked in the curing barn and was approximately 24 years old in 1819, had appeared in Haight's log without incident for 3 years. Her output ratings were consistently noted as satisfactory. She had one child, boy, whose name appeared in Haight's asset ledger with a projected future value. After the October announcement, Nance's name continued to appear in the labor log without change. The overseer absence on the Haight property was structurally significant. In most plantation operations of comparable size, an overseer served as an intermediary layer between the owner and the workforce, recording, enforcing, and absorbing the friction of daily authority. Without that layer, Haight's authority was direct and unmediated. Marcus, the senior field supervisor, held a functional role but no formal power. He could direct task execution, but could not discipline, could not alter assignments, and could not intervene in any transaction Haight initiated. His position gave him visibility into everything that happened on the property and the ability to act on none of it. He had understood this constraint for 12 years and operated within it precisely. The first visible fracture appeared not in the field, but in the domestic quarters, approximately 6 weeks after the October announcement. Two women, Nance and a younger woman named Flora, who worked in the main house, had, according to a later account by Marcus, stopped speaking to each other without explanation. They had previously coordinated on shared tasks. The coordination ceased. They worked in proximity when assignments required it, and did not interact beyond functional necessity. Marcus noticed and noted it privately. He did not report it to Haight. The labor log for that period shows no incident notation. Whatever had shifted between the two women existed entirely outside the record. By the spring of 1820, it became apparent to anyone observing the property's population that Haight had acted on his announcement. Flora, who was approximately 19, was visibly pregnant by March. She continued her house duties through the second trimester, at which point Haight reassigned her to lighter work without explanation. Reassignment was noted in the labor log as Flora, modified duties, March 1820. No reason was given. No one asked for one. A second woman, named Bess, who worked in the tobacco stripping room, was pregnant by early summer. The pregnancies were visible simultaneously on a property of 26 people. Every person on that property understood their origin. Marcus continued running field assignments. He recorded output. He did not record what he observed beyond the labor log's categories. What the log captured in 8820 was a property functioning normally its own operational standards. Completed, outputs rated, names accounted for at morning and evening count. What the log did not capture was the internal reorganization of the population around two facts: that two women were carrying Haight's children, and that everyone was waiting to see what would happen when those children were born. Flora delivered in September 1820. The child was a girl. Haight was present at the birth, attended by an older enslaved woman named Cora who handled medical care on the property. He examined the infant, confirmed its sex, and left the quarters without speaking. Cora later described this to Marcus in terms that did not appear in any document. That Haight had looked at the child the way a man looks at an account that has not settled as expected. He entered the birth in his asset ledger the following morning. The entry read, "Female infant Flora, born September 1820, sound, value working age $200 to $350. Flora's name in the labor log did not change. No manumission document was filed. In November 1820, Cornelius Haight consulted a lawyer in Farmville and Eldridge regarding the legal standing of verbal promises made to enslaved persons. The consultation is documented in Eldridge's billing records, which survive in a Prince Edward County archive. The entry reads, Haight, C. Consultation agreements, enforceability, property status, 1.5 hours. Eldridge's notes from the meeting survive. What the billing record establishes is that Haight sought legal clarification on the question within 2 months of the first birth. Under Virginia law at the time, a verbal promise of manumission made to an enslaved person was not legally enforceable. Manumission required a written document, filed with the county court, signed by the owner. No such document was required to be honored based on prior oral commitment alone. Best delivered in January 1821. The child was a girl. Haight entered the birth in the asset ledger using the same format as Flora's entry. No manumission document was filed. By the spring of 1821, the structure of the original promise had been tested twice and had produced the same out twice: a daughter, a ledger entry, and silence. The women who had not become pregnant were now operating with 2 data points instead of 1. Whether this changed their calculations is not recorded. What is recorded is that 4 more women became pregnant by hate between 121 and 831. Each delivered. Each child was a girl. Each entry in the asset ledger followed the same format. The first irreversible step, not Hate's, but the properties, came from Marcus in 822. He had, over the previous 2 years, been maintaining a private record of the births, the ledger entries, and the absence of manumission filings. He kept this record in his memory, not on paper, because paper was dangerous. But he began, in 1822, to tell the women on the property, directly, visually, in terms that could not be misunderstood. What Ridge's consultation had almost certainly confirmed: that the promise had no legal standing, that a daughter could not be freed by a verbal agreement. And Haight had known this before he made the announcement. He told each woman once. He did not repeat it. He did not discuss it in groups. He returned to his field supervision as though the conversations had not occurred. In 1831, the 7th daughter was born on the Haight plantation. Her mother was a woman named Ruth, and had become pregnant in 1830. Ruth's delivery was attended by Cora, as all the others had been. Haight entered the birth in the ledger. Ruth returned work on a modified schedule. The asset ledger by 1830-31 contained 7 entries for female children born to Haight. 7 names, 7 estimated values, 7 notations of sound. The combined projected value of the 7 children at working age was listed in a summary column Haight had added to the ledger in 828 at approximately $400. The aggressive action came not from Haight but from the county. In 1832, Virginia passed legislation tightening the requirements for manumission in the wake of Nat Turner's rebellion, which occurred in Southampton County the previous year. The new law required that any manumission be approved not only by the owner but by the county court, and further stipulated that freed persons under the age of 20 could not remain in Virginia without a special exemption. The legislation did not directly affect the Haight property. No manumissions had been filed there. But it formalized in public law the closure of the avenue that Haight's promise had theoretically opened. Marcus learned the content of the new law through a free black man who worked at a Farmville cooperative. He did not tell anyone on the property immediately. He waited 2 weeks, then told Nance, who was the woman who had been on the property longest, and whose son, her child from before Haight's announcement, had been sold in 1828. Nance's response to the information was not recorded. What changed afterward was observable. She stopped performing any task beyond minimum required standard. Not below it, Haight's log continued to show her output as satisfactory, which was the floor of acceptable performance, not the ceiling. She had previously rated good on approximately half her entries. After 1832, she rated satisfactory on every entry until her last appearance in the log. It was a precise, sustainable, unpunishable reduction. Haight noticed it. His log entries for her became more frequent, suggesting increased observation, but he recorded no incident and issued no correction because there was nothing to correct. She was meeting the standard. She had simply stopped exceeding it. The non-reversible decision came from a collective, not an individual. In 1833, 5 of the mothers, Nance, Flora, Bess, Ruth, and a woman named Ida, whose daughter in 1829 coordinated, through Marcus, to present Haight with a written request. The document asked Haight to formalize his 1819 promise in writing to be the county court as required by Virginia law. Marcus had did the language. A free black man in Farmville had written it out cleanly. The 5 women signed it with marks. Marcus delivered it to Haight in the main house on a Tuesday morning in March 88, 1823. Haight read the document. He told Marcus to return the field. He did not respond to the request in writing. He did not respond verbally. 3 days later, Marcus was sold to a buyer in Richmond. The transaction was completed in less than a week. Marcus's name disappeared from the labor log. His replacement was an overseer, the first one the Haight plantation had employed, named Garrett, who arrived from Petersburg with his own set of rules and his own logbook. Garrett's arrival changed the operational texture of the plantation immediately and completely. He implemented a formal pass system for movement between orders and work areas. He introduced a demerit notation that had no equivalent in Haight's previous record keeping. He conducted evening inspections of the quarters twice weekly. Within the first month, 3 workers had received demerit notations, 2 for pace violations, 1 what Garrett described as insolent bearing. None of the 3 were among the 5 women who had signed the request. The demerits were distributed broadly enough to function as general demonstration rather than targeted retaliation. Everyone understood the message without it needing to be directed at anyone specifically. The 5 women continued their work. Flora was now 32. Nance was 38. Their daughters, 7 girls between the ages of 3 and 13, all entered in Haight's ledger, all assigned project values, lived in the children's quarters, and were beginning to appear in Garrett's work assignment log, in the lighter duty categories. Flora's daughter, the eldest, was assigned to domestic work in 1833 at age 13. Her name appeared in Garrett's log for the first time that fall. Her mother's name was 3 lines above hers. The confrontation, such as it was, came in 1835, when Haight, seriously ill, kept him confined to the main house for 6 weeks. During this period, Garrett ran the property entirely. The labor log for those 6 weeks shows no deviations, no incidents, no disruptions. The property functioned. When Haight recovered, he summoned Nance to the main house, the first direct interaction between them since 1833. What was said in that meeting is not recorded. What followed it was, Haight added a codicil to his will in 1835, prepared by Eldridge and Funk, that explicitly stated that no oral promises regarding manumission made prior to 1935 were to be considered binding on his estate. The codicil was filed with the county court. It was the first document Haight had ever filed that referenced the promise. It referenced it in order to nullify it. The codicil was a public document. Eldridge's office was in Farmville, where free black residents and enslaved people with town access could learn of filings through the same informal networks that had carried legal information before. Whether the women on the Haight plantation learned the codicil's existence before Haight's death in 1847 is not established. What is established is that between May 1035 and 1847, no further collective action was taken. No further written requests were filed, and the property continued under Garrett's management without recorded incident. The daughters grew. They were assigned to work rotations. Their values in Haight's ledger were updated upward as they aged. Cornelius Haight died in March 1847 at age 69. His will, prepared by Eldridge and filed with Prince Edward County, distributed the plantation and all assets to his nephew, a man named Warren Haight of Lynchburg. The enslaved population, 29 persons by 1847, including the 9 daughters now ranging in age from 67, was listed in the will as inherited property, valued collectively at total $100. The 9 daughters were itemized individually. Their mothers were itemized individually. No manumission was included. No reference was made to the 1819 announcement. The 1835 codicil was attached as a standard estate document. Warren Haight took possession of the plantation in the summer of 1847. He retained Garrett as overseer and made no immediate changes to the labor structure. 3 of the 9 daughters were sold within the first year of his ownership, not as punishment, but as liquidity. Warren, from a failed business venture in Lynchburg and needed cash. The sales were conducted through a Richmond broker. The mothers of the 3 daughters who were sold remained on the property. Nance died on the plantation in 1849, according to the estate's death warrant, at approximately 54 years old. The cause was listed as age and infirmity. Her daughter, born in 1883, sold in 1847, was in Richmond. Whether Nance knew where her daughter had gone is not recorded. Flora remained on the property through emancipation in 1865. She appears in the 1870 census in Prince Edward County, listed as a domestic worker, age approximately 69. Her daughter, the eldest of the 9, is listed in the same census entry as living in the same household. They had found each other after emancipation, or had never been separated. The record does not specify which. Marcus, who had been sold to Richmond 1833, appears in an 1866 Freedmen's Bureau registration as Marcus Haight. He had taken the plantation name, as many formerly enslaved people did, age approximately 70, residing in Richmond, occupation listed as retired laborer. He made no statement to the Bureau beyond the registration information. He died sometime before the 1870 census. The 1819 announcement was never written down by Haight. It was never entered into any official record. Its existence is established entirely through the pattern of births, ledger entries, and the 1835 codicil, which referenced oral promises without specifying their content. Eldridge's billing record from 1820 corroborates the timeline. The promise itself exists in the archive only as an absence. A thing that was said, acted upon 9 women across 19 years, and then legally erased by the man who said it, using the same legal system that had made it unenforceable from the moment he opened his mouth. The 9 daughters are listed in Haight's asset ledger by name, birth year, and estimated value. The ledger is held in a Virginia historical archive. Researchers have noted that the entries follow an unusual pattern. 9 female children born to 9 different mothers over 19 years, all fathered by the same owner. But the ledger contains no annotation explaining the pattern, and no cross-reference to any promise or legal consultation. The 1819 announcement does not appear in any document ever signed. What the ledger records is the outcome. 9 girls, 9 valuations, 9 entries indistinguishable in format from any other asset. Whether the man who made the promise knew, when he made it, that biology would not comply, or whether he simply knew that the law would protect him either way, the archive does not answer.